Hello, everyone. Welcome to Breathup's podcast. We have Alessandro here. How do you spell your name, Alessandro? Alessandro or
Alessandro, or more quickly, Alex. Usually is the
Alex?
international nickname that I give to everyone. Alex, it's faster.
Okay, Alex, welcome. Okay, welcome, Alex. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
hear that you're an all-rounder. You're a psychologist, you're specialized in sports psychology, you're also a master breathwork teacher, coach, and you're also working with professional athletes and healthcare specialists. I would love to hear more, like when did you start? How did you start? How did your business evolve? Let's first hear it from you.
Oh, it's a long story, but I will make it short. Actually, I'm born in Africa and I lived there for many, many years. And one day in Madagascar, I got introduced to the world of meditation. And I had a monk as a teacher for many years that used to live there. Until one day I moved to France and I started my psychology, my psychology per course and then I moved to Italy and I finished my studies in neuroscience. And I've done my thesis on the mindfulness method and the Wim Hof method together. So since then, I specialized in the world of breathwork, and I combine two passions. One of them is psychology, the other one is sport, and also the clinical practice, and all of them mixed together under the world of breathwork, as we could say. So it's a long story. It's personal in the same time. There is a research behind it because I'm a neuroscientist. So in the end, I evolved and I founded Oxylab that this year should be I will try to do my best to make it as a society. But my main purpose is to also help people using breathing techniques. That's it. Not only in the world of the clinical practice that is very important, but also in the world of sport and also corporates, because there is a big analogy between the world of sports and the world of corporates, which is competition, for example, and many other analogies. So that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's go one by one because I'm sure our listeners are now wondering, okay, so neuroscience, and let's first start there, like neuroscience and breath work, and with the whole, study you've been doing around neuroscience, when you look at breath work, what can you tell us? I mean, I know some answers, but I think you would give us like more details on how breathing changes the neurology and how it supports the whole neurological system, or daily breath work, and which techniques are the best for that. And then we'll go to the psychology side of it, and then we can go from there to athletes and corporates.
Oh, yeah, of course. Oh, this is a very, very wide question that you're asking because actually, I would like to say that the world of breathing is a quite a new world, but in the same time is very ancient, as you know. It's more than 5,000 years before Christ. So there is a long story, but just recently it has been discovered that many benefits from the world of breath work with different typologies of breathing exercises from just awareness of the breath, from slow breathing exercises or hyperventilation, Wim Hof like meditation, or also, for example, Sudarshan Kriya Yoga, for example, can have a big impact on not only on our brain, but also on our metabolism, our psychophysiology, but also our behavior. So we can start from there. Usually, in the context, every context, when we are localized in a context, there is an emotional tonality. So we are emotionally localized in a certain context. So, for example, if you're receiving a bad news or a good news, it's still an emotional impact. And as we are going to behave, for example, you're afraid, you're going to breathe in and open your mouth when you're scared. Also, the breath will be involved as a reaction to this behavior. So there are many typologies of breathing correlated to our emotions, but this breathing exercise, for example, this breathing reaction will trigger emotions, but also in the end, emotions will trigger a certain pattern of breathing. So many things will occur. For example, if you're going to tend to hyperventilate, we're going to notice that your frontal lobes that are involved in executive functions, for example, or also the connectivity of your brain, the functionality of your electroencephalogram will change. For example, just breathing orally, you are tendentially activating the left sphere of your brain. But if you're breathing through the nose, we can see that the activation and the pattern, the electric pattern, are more functional and diffused into your brain. So this is why also with the oxygen advantage, especially with Patrick McKeown, we're talking a lot about that usually when I meet him. And we talk about the importance of nasal breathing in our everyday life, not only for the biochemical aspect about oxygen or carbon dioxide, or the biomechanical aspect linked to our diaphragm, but also our psychophysiological system and our brain, how our brain can easily work. For example, if we tend to hyperventilate, we are noticing that people with depression, for example, have excessive bad rumination, meaning that they're still thinking about the same bad things every time. But just correcting a little bit of their breathing and their breathing pattern, you can help them to improve and reduce the impact of those symptoms. So there is a big world there.
Yeah, and I've been in my own research and in my own studies, I've been seeing that because respiration regulates the body fluid chemistry, because it changes the body fluid chemistry. I think there is also a chemical aspect. Every time we breathe in a certain way, it can change our brain fluid chemistry, and maybe that's also, you know, one of the reasons why we start thinking in certain ways, like negative thoughts or fearful thoughts, because it's either too alkaline or too acidic, because it's not ideal. It doesn't have the perfect 7.4 pH. And I've been like, this is my own area which I'm interested in, and I found that you know, the body fluid chemistry, when it's 7.4, like magically we start feeling balanced, and we start thinking in an inspired way, and we're more connected with ourselves. But then when the body fluid chemistry changes, our thoughts change, our thought pattern changes, and then our emotions and how we feel changes. So that's the area I've been researching on and reading and studying. So these are all, you know, these are all affecting each other, of course, because the body is very much complicated than we can, you know, ever imagine. Okay, when we look at the psychological side of it, which we we did, and also like the athletes, because our team is asking what are the benefits of breathwork for professional sport performers, and also like you said, there is competition in sports world and also in the corporate world. So I will ask the question, like, how can people who are in an environment, in a very much competitive environment, benefit most from breath work, whether it be in a competitive corporate environment or a competitive you know, sports environment? How you know, have you been able to help them and support them?
Okay, very easy. So this question is very more specific. So I would start every time with nasal breathing, with functional breathing. So a breathing pattern that answers your metabolic capacities, that do not go beyond your metabolism, your metabolic request. So what do I mean by that? I mean hyperventilation syndrome, for example, like this breathing like this, or the sense of breathlessness, or excessive sighing, for example. All of those elements, and many of them that I'm forgetting right now and that didn't mention, are correlated to a bad functional breathing. And if we are talking about sport athletes or professional sport athletes, it doesn't mean that they have a very correct breathing or breathing pattern. So on the first sight, and due to the fact that the way how we breathe during the day and during the night will also have an impact about how we breathe during performance, we have to first correct the breathing functionality, first of all. And this is the first aspect where I intervene. The other thing that we have to understand is, why do we need a good breathing? So the functional breathing will help us during performance while, for example, performing. I don't know if you do some kind of sport or if you do some kind of strong yoga, but a sense of air hunger will appear. And usually the sense of air hunger is correlated to the fact that we release a lot of carbon dioxide. So instead of, usually people will say, yes, we need more oxygen. No, we have to tolerate more CO2. We have to have a better tolerance to the sense of air hunger while performing. But the biggest problem, especially in the world of sport, is a lot of emphasis has been put over performance, but a little bit less on recovery. So now we have to know how to perform in recovering, for example. So we can use different breathing exercises for a more functional aspect after a training, from a passive aspect in order to recover, for sleeping also, or for learning stress management tools and other stuff. For example, we need to learn how to focus during performance, to bring just your attention to your breath, just in order to calm down your mind activity, is something very useful if you have to focus. Pay attention to the fencers, just the fencers, the way how they have to target things. I'm working a lot with fencers or soccer players during a penalty. They have to slow down their wandering mind and just to untouch from their thoughts in order to perform better and avoid any kind of pessimistic approach or actions. But on the other side, also, the way how you sleep is very important if you want to learn how to focus, to have a proper and fresh sleep when you wake up fresh, and especially, and if you sleep in a very good way without snoring or without having obstructive sleep apnea. But I work with a lot of soccer players and MMA fighters. There is a thing, to a certain level. I will tell you that episode with one of them. He was doing a championship in MMA, and as soon as he came back to his closet, he had a paper with all his statistics. So you have pressure every time. So you don't get rid of pressure. Many of them will tell you you have to know how to cohabitate with pressure. But if you have some breathing exercise in order to have some kind of pause or mental pause, or a different way of having a coffee, because coffee will activate you, you will have a very functional pause for you, a functional break in this case. And this will help you to handle such kind of pressure. So the breathing exercise will help you just resuming everything. It will help you to handle performance, to keep your mind sharp, especially, for example, for militaries and those or soldiers, which is really important. But on the other side, it will help you to recover. And on the other side, from a sports psychology point of view, it will help you to focus and to just untouch from your thoughts in such case. So there is a wide panel of breathing exercise. And then not every sport athlete will use the same breathing exercise. For example, in my case, or with certain other athletes' case, they won't want to do some kind of hyperventilation exercise. They prefer something more slowish, while others, they will ask you to just more be activated. I don't know. I wanted to cover many things.
Yeah,
and this is a very
that's
wide
great.
topic.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And I want to also tap into something more on the physiological side. And I'm a tennis player myself, so I'm very interested in tennis, watching Wimbledon. I have a tennis player father, a husband. Everybody in the house is, we're very interested in the whole tennis world. And you probably heard 2 years ago, actually, not last year, but the year before in Wimbledon, a famous tennis player, Emma Raducanu, maybe you heard of it. She was a brilliant tennis player, had to quit her game due to difficulty in breathing. And she struggled to breathe, and she had to retire her fourth round match, and she had to quit Wimbledon, which is kind of like a huge thing. Which is kind of like a huge thing. It's like, for me, when I heard that, when I saw that, I was like, wow, we really need to help all these people in the competitive world, because they are probably hyperventilating. I mean, it's like if you're in competition playing tennis or competitive sports, you're probably a performance breather. It's like you need to breathe real deep during the match and all that. And she's probably having a hard time relaxing her breath afterwards. And due to that, just imagine you worked whole your life for, Wimbledon, and you're this really talented woman, and you have to quit Wimbledon because you have difficulty in breathing, nothing to do with the match or what you did. And then afterwards, I also heard there was an interview with Nadal, and he revealed that he had breathing difficulties and felt like a needle, and he started having these problems as well. So there is this thing around I believe tennis players or people who are, in the competitive sports industry, they are probably breathing, not probably, definitely breathing too much during the games, during the matches, and then they're finding it hard to relax their breathing. And I started thinking they all need a sports coach. They all need a breathing coach, so a breath coach, a breath teacher to teach them how to balance their breath and how to manage their breath, because it's not only psychological. Now we start, hearing more on the physiological levels as well. I want to hear your ideas around that because you work with athletes.
The thing is, concerning this kind of hyperventilation and the origin and the nature of the problem that gave the origin of that kind of hyperventilation is very difficult sometimes to spot out. Why? Because the problem can be multifactorial. So a good assessment is very important, but at least the most important thing is to give to those people, and this is what I usually do through my work, is to give them some very small, short tools in order to calm down the problem. Because if you give, for example, a very specific tool, the coherence breathing, you just breathing for 5 seconds and breathe out for 5 seconds, and your heartbeat and your breathing pattern will start to synchronize. This can have a very tremendous benefit over your whole psychophysiology, and then also on your psychology impact then, and you're solving, or you're helping yourself more than solving, you're helping yourself with just one very simple technique with many different fields. And you will help why it is important to do those kind of breathing exercises. For HRV and improving your heart rate variability? No. To calm down your stress? Yes, but not only. It is very important for one very simple thing: to improve your existing condition. What do I mean by that? If you wanted to be a professional tennis player in your case, and you want to get the best of yourself, using the breathing exercise will give you more possibilities of action over yourself, over your opponent, but over the situation itself. So increasing also the probability of the success or your own specific goals in order to reach a certain objective in this case. This is why it is really important to have a breathing expert close to you. And, I was reading a paper yesterday and I had to stop just one minute. And more we are going forward and more I'm studying, it's been more than 10 years now that I'm studying all the world of breathing. And more we're going forward, more I'm feeling ignorant, because it's a very complex world that will attach to any other spheres. And this is why now we are talking about the breathwork revolution, because we are in a new era. The previous one was the mindfulness one that had a peak around the 2014. But still nowadays, we're talking about breathwork. And both of those fields are combining with many others. So the world of breathwork, the breathwork or the specific breathwork or breathwork instructor, breathing coach in the world of sport, and also in the world of corporates, it happened for me many times, especially for sleeping. Just have a good sleep. Try to have a big work after one day where you didn't sleep for 2 hours. How will you feel? Really bad. So this is why learn how to do some kind of breathing exercise for your sleep quality is really important. And working with patients, and we'll conclude with that, working with patients, I can see that I see a lot of people with terrible condition in psychiatry. It happened to me many times. And the way how you can just apply those breathing exercises to yourself without removing the drug prescription, which is important for certain people, you can see that I still remember the sentence from one of my patients who told me, my wife, he was a guy, he told me, my wife told me that I was not focused on my problem anymore thanks to those breathing exercises. I changed in 1 month. So this is why those breathing exercises will give you the responsibility also of your health and to feel self-efficient. And this is one of the main key points in my opinion. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I love breathwork revolution because I see that's happening as well. And that's why Breath Hub exists, because, to be people's ally in their hands, like the breath coach in their hands, because not many people have the time, Not many people have the money to, work with a private coach. Maybe a professional athlete would, but not everybody would. We created Breath Up with that mission so that people can have their breath coach in their hands and someone to guide them into different breathing sessions when they have anxiety, panic attack, or, all kinds of symptoms. I think we're moving exactly. I think we're moving with science and with scientific research. I think we're moving in a new era where we see that breathing is the most important thing in our lives. And I mean, I've been teaching breath work and I've been involved in breathing and, breathing sciences faculty, researching, studying on breathing for like over 20 years now. And for me as an expert, I don't even understand how people can't see the importance of just daily 5 minutes of 10 minutes of breathing awareness, because the quality of our lives depends on the quality of our breathing. It's like every other thing. It's like talking, eating, sleeping, reading, working, every other thing we do in, certain times during the day. But if you're alive, the only thing you're always doing, like every moment of your life, you are going to be breathing. And that's the main thing in your hands. It's like, why don't you improve it? It's like, why don't you work on it? Why don't you? I mean, it's like, it's so simple. We take our first breath, we come to life, we give our last. And in the middle, when you look at the whole life experience on a very basic level, it's just the number of the, inhales and exhales, the total number of inhales and exhales. That's life, as simple as it gets. So the better you breathe, the better you live. It's so obvious, even on the very basic level. And when you do scientific research, like you said, we see that breathing, because we are breathing throughout the whole day, it's like our breathing behaviors reflect on our lives in every level. It's like if you have a breathing problem, it affects your career, it affects your business, it affects your athletic performance, it affects your thoughts, it affects your organs, tissues, cells don't regenerate and all that. And I think more and more people started seeing the importance. And it's not just going to in my opinion, as an expert who've been doing research for a long time, I think breathwork is not just about, because that's what's happening around the world, what I see, because with an hour or an hour and a half, deep breathing sessions, like breathwork sessions, like Wim Hof, transformational breathing, rebirthing, holotropic breathing, especially the young generation, because they love the experience. They are looking at breathwork as, the same experience like psychedelics. Let's go to a breathwork session and, experience stuff. But actually, breathwork is more than that. It's like, I want to emphasize the importance of, using breath every day and just connecting with your breathing, like building that breath awareness, just 5 to 10 minutes every day, when you wake up, checking your breath, like you said, before you go to bed, just doing a breathing exercise, calming down your breath. And then maybe you need to pump up the breath, you need energy. Like learning to manage breath is so much more important than the whole experience of an hour of breathwork session. So I would like to emphasize on the importance of that, like connecting with our breath, managing our breath. It's kind of like being a friend with our breath, understanding when things go wrong, like you said, because we're changing our breathing pattern, during certain emotions, and when we don't want to feel, and when we don't want to, psychologically, when we want to alter our psychology or change or manipulate our psychology. Just noticing that, like how we are breathing when we are anxious, when we're in panic, when we are in fear, building that awareness, I think is much more important for anyone who wants to live a healthy, well, and a successful life.
The main point that you've raised is the one that some young people will try to do some breath work at the beginning in order to get some weird sensation, to get high, as Wim Hof says, to get high on your own supply, or they will come to you at the beginning for sport performance, because one of the main problems in sport performance is the breath. For example, while doing tennis or while doing sport, I'm a fighter. the main thing when you are gassing out, the main thing that you're going to do is to slow down, because you tell to yourself, if I continue like this, I will gas out soon enough, and I don't want this. But then while practicing, people say, oh, snap, I see that I have distance with my thoughts after 2 weeks, for example. Or, oh, snap, it's different. I'm not agitated anymore. My way how I react and I deal and copy with things is totally different right now. So at the beginning, you start, as everyone, I would like to say, to get sensations. You are a sensation seeker, which is a psychopathology also in the world of psychology. Or you want to improve your sport performance. After a while, you're undiscovering things progressively, and things that are yours and are made to you because they are yours. And it means that you have to have a look over there. So I don't go in the world of spirituality because I'm a scientist. I take a look about it because it is really important, because there is a big culture around it, and we have to be aware as scientists that it exists. But on the other side, as a clinician, when people are talking about such topics, I'm aware of them, and I want to protect their thoughts and their belief, because it is really important for the course of the therapy itself. Okay, so yes, this is the magic of the things. You go there and you want to try for something, but in the end you discover something else that is more deep and only for you. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's, I mean, breath is how I see breath is it gives us the power to govern ourselves, and it does it by, you start becoming the observer, you
Yeah.
start, being more balanced, your chemistry changes, your physiology changes. Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm going to ask you one last thing, because you probably
Oh,
have been, interested in meditation and mindfulness as well. And I see also a big difference in, between the meditation practice and breath work. I think that's why corporates are adopting breath work easier than meditation, because it's still not easy for many people to sit down and meditate, but it is very easy for people to just do a breath work session for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or a breath work practice for 10 minutes a day. It doesn't need focus, it doesn't need a certain place, you can do it anywhere, anytime. It's just an exercise. It's like a, sports exercise. It's much more easier, it's much more simpler, and it's much more effective because it changes the physiology, it changes the chemistry, it changes everything, especially on the physiological level, instantly, in a matter of minutes. Like you said, coherent breathing, how it balances the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, and how it balances people. Because I've been, trying that, especially when I have meetings with people who are new to breath work. And if they are like, okay, what does breath work do? I just, lead them into 1 minute or 2 minutes of balancing the inhale and exhale to coherent breathing. And they're like, wow, amazing, like amazing how balanced I feel now, amazing how more focused I feel in a minute,
yeah.
in 2 minutes. Wow. And I'm like, because your physiology changed, because your chemistry changed, because the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, they're aligned. And people can spend hours and days and months to get there if they're only practicing meditation or just trying to practice mindfulness methods only.
Yeah.
What do you have
So,
to, anything to say
oh,
about that?
I have a good example. It is one of my, it was one trader. Okay. Uh, when someone comes to meet me for having a breathwork session or to learn something or whatsoever, um, everyone comes to you with a certain personality. So I had that trader, and a very exuberant trader, very agitated, very exuberant, with a very strong behavior. So those people, for example, if you ask to such kind of people to just sit down, meditate, and stay silent, they will go crazy. And that's normal, because their personality and their behavior is not made for being sad and doing those breathing exercises. So what do if to do meditation? So what do you have to do? You have to use the inertia of those kind of personality, of those kind of behavior, and propose a breathing exercise that is close to their way of behaving. So in such case, you give a strong hyperventilating exercise that has to be judged, that has to be limited in certain time of length in order to give them a sensation of relaxing right after the word. Because if you ask them to stay silent, it's like telling to someone, please be calm, be calm. You will be more agitated. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So what you have to do, you give them some kind of strong hyperventilating exercise, a Wim Hof like, for example, or 30 breathing exercises, and followed by an exhale. And you ask them, how do they feel? And I remember the first time I asked him to sit down and to do the mindfulness practice. And he told me, I didn't come here to do those kind of boo-boo crap, you know that? I said, okay, no problem, no problem. I was laughing with him because I knew him. I knew the personage, the character in front of me. And he told me, let's do this. And we tried some Wim Hof method breathing like, and it was totally different. I said, wow, that's different. So what did I learn from that? Doing some breathing exercises, some people are close to their body, others are not close at all to their body. They don't feel their body. This is why many people can smoke or drink alcohol or eat a lot, like binge eating, to feel their body, to feel sensations. So giving them another way of feeling their body, using and manipulating the biochemistry, making it more alkaline, for example, is another way to release also opiates from their brain in order to feel calm and relaxed in such case. And you give them another experience, and they will want to retry it and to renew it more now and then. And after a while, they will start to have the same benefits of meditation, for example, because they are already connected to those sensations. And they will want to say, okay, if I'm remaining still for a certain time, maybe I will feel it more, even more. And they start to discover themselves in another aspect, in another way of behaving, in another way to do experience about themselves. They didn't use the main gate about meditation, but they will just go around it through hyperventilation and then proceed and go forward with this one. So we have billions of breathing exercises. There is an exercise for everyone, for sure. The most important aspect is to follow your feelings. And as you know, there is that sentence that it was very inspiring for me, is that we have all the rivers goes to the same ocean. So I think in few words, it's the same thing for us and for the world of breathwork.
Yeah, thank you. It was amazing to talk with you, and it was. I think we can go on and on and on for hours.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you. It was a very nice podcast. Thank you for your energy. Thank you, Bea, for being here, for your inspiration and all the information you gave us. And thanks to our listeners and anybody who's watching on our YouTube channel. I'll see you next week. And if you have one last thing to say, what would that be?
But for me, it's a thank you, especially thank you for the invitation. Thank you to Antonia, she's not here. And thank you for our listeners. So my main advice for everyone who wants to start with nose breathing in your everyday life, and start every time short with a breathing practice, and be at the beginning gentle with yourself every time, which is really important.
Yeah, start with 5 minutes, start with 10 minutes. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
See you soon,
Thank you, Nevşah.
hopefully.
See you
Bye
soon.
for now. Bye.
Bye.